All right, today we're jumping into the really incredible story of Madhya at Agro products. Looking at their latest earnings call, it's clear they didn't just have a good quarter. No, they managed to ride a perfect storm of conditions to post some absolutely standout results. So let's get into it. Really, what this all comes down to is a story of being in the exact right place at the exact right time, executing flawlessly, and this is the key part, using all that momentum to make a massive bet on the future. We're talking about record-breaking profits and an expansion plan that could totally change their position in the market. So the big question is, how on earth did they pull this off? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was basically three major factors that all came together at once to create the perfect environment for a fertilizer company to just thrive. Let's break down what made up this perfect storm. First off, the weather. You seriously couldn't have asked for a better setup. The 2025 monsoon was stronger than normal. And that creates this awesome domino effect, right? More rain leads to better soil, it fills up the water reservoirs, and what does that do? It gets farmers excited and ready to plant, which, you guessed it, sends the demand for fertilizers through the roof. Second, you've got the government stepping in to help. The cabinet decided to increase the minimum support prices, the MSP, for some really important crops. Now here's why that matters so much. It puts more cash directly into the hands of farmers. And with more purchasing power, they're much more willing to invest in their farms with better inputs, like the stuff Bharat sells. And the final piece of this puzzle? It was global. China, which is a huge player in the fertilizer game, put restrictions on its exports. All of a sudden, India had this massive supply gap, especially for a key fertilizer called DAP. For a local manufacturer like Madhya Bharat, this wasn't a crisis. It was a golden opportunity. Okay, so with that stage set, let's look at the actual numbers, because they aren't just good, they're explosive. This is where you really see how well they took advantage of those perfect conditions. First up, let's talk revenue. For the first half of the year, their top-line revenue just skyrocketed by 80%. I mean, a jump that big is pretty wild. It tells you that demand was absolutely off the charts, and the company was pretty much running full steam just to try and keep up. But hey, if you think that's impressive, just wait until you see the bottom line. Their profit after tax grew by an unbelievable 132%. And that is the number that really tells the story. It shows they weren't just selling more stuff. They were doing it super efficiently, turning all that new revenue straight into pure profit. And of course, for anyone who's an investor, this is what it all comes down to, right? The earnings per share more than doubled from the year before. It's a direct reflection of that incredible profitability we were just talking about. So where did all this growth actually come from? Well, just take a look at this chart. It's pretty clear that the main driver was their NPK fertilizers. That's the stuff with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Sales volume for that jumps a massive 58%. Their other product, SSP, also saw a really solid 14% bump. These two were clearly the engines powering that revenue surge. And if we break down where the money came from, you can see it right here. NPK fertilizers made up the lion's share, almost 60%, with SSP adding another big chunk at 32%. This just proves that their more complex, value-added fertilizers were exactly what the market was crying out for. Okay, so that was the incredible first half. But here's the thing. This company isn't just sitting back and counting the cash. Nope, they're taking all this momentum and plowing it right back into one of the most ambitious expansion plans you'll see. And they are not wasting any time. They've got a really clear, aggressive timeline laid out. A new expansion at their Saga plant is set to go live by March 2026. And right after that, a huge, fully integrated plant in Delhi is scheduled for October 2026. They are moving seriously fast. And the scale of this whole thing is just massive. Management said it themselves on the call. These projects are going to push their total capacity to over 1.2 million tons. To put that into perspective, that's more than double what they can do right now. It is, in their own words, a very huge capacity. And at the same time, they're making this really smart, strategic play for the future. They've locked in a 10-year deal for green ammonia. This is so crucial. Why? Because it guarantees them a supply of a key raw material. It means they don't have to rely on imports as much, and it perfectly aligns them with the government's big push for national self-reliance. It's a win-win-win. Of course, it's never all smooth sailing, is it? There are always challenges. And during the Q&A on their call, investors brought up some really good points. So let's take a look at how management handled these potential roadblocks. The first big question, and it's one on everyone's mind these days. With the cost of raw materials going up, what's going to happen to their profit margins? I mean, it's a classic problem that can really squeeze any manufacturing company. Well, their answer was pretty confident. They basically said they have long-term contracts locked in for key supplies, and for everything else, any cost increases just get passed on. They were very clear on this, saying they expect no material impact to their bottom line. Okay, the second big worry. India imports a ton of fertilizer. So the question is, what happens when other big players sign these huge long-term import deals? Is that just going to flood the market and crush Madhya Bharat's sales? And this is where their whole perspective on scale is so interesting. Management's take is that the Indian market is just massive. It's so huge that right now they're only serving less than 2% of the country's total need. So even with their giant expansion, there is more than enough room for them to grow without worrying about imports. So after that fire hose of information from their earnings call, what are the big things we need to walk away with? Let's try to pull it all together. So, to sum it all up, Madhya Bharat Agro saw this perfect set of market conditions and they absolutely capitalized on it. Now they're taking those record profits and reinvesting them into a huge expansion to more than double their size. At the same time, they're de-risking their business with smart moves into green energy and locking down their supply chains. And when it comes to industry challenges, they seem to have a pretty clear and confident plan. And that really brings us to the final big question. They've already proven they can execute. They're building this massive, future-proof production machine. So the question we're left with is this. Are we watching a company get ready to dominate India's next big agricultural boom? That, right there, is the billion-dollar question.